If you clicked on this video, you're probably interested in what's going on in the Middle East right now. At this point in time, it's looking like World War III is imminent. We have currently, 15 to 18 warships in the Eastern Mediterranean, probably some stuff in the Persian Gulf. At the time of this video, within the last hour or two, we've received reports that U.S. fighter jets, F-15s and F-16s, have hit targets inside of Syria belonging to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Pretty serious escalation on our part, although it's in response to them attacking us over the last week to 10 days inside of Syria, inside of Iraq, at our various military installations in those locations. So currently, Israel is on the border of the Gaza Strip. They have made several limited incursions into the Gaza Strip. There's reports that one of their special forces operators was kidnapped by Hamas militants today. I don't have any confirmed sources on that I've seen. However, that's in the rumor mill on the interwebs. So, the world is poised right now to see what's going to develop here. Is Israel going to make a full-scale launch into the Gaza Strip? What is Hezbollah going to do in the north along the Golan Heights? What is Syria going to do? What is Kataib Hezbollah going to do out of Iraq? Will the Taliban do anything out of Afghanistan? There were unconfirmed reports of Pakistan attacking India today. We've got Ukraine and Russia at war. We've got China that's moved 6 warships into the Eastern Mediterranean along our ships. The possible Chinese incursion into Taiwan could happen any day. It's a good time to pay attention. It's a good time to keep your head on a swivel, and that's something that I try to do, and I want to give you some information to help you understand this conflict, this war in Israel. I want to help you understand some of the background of it. I want to help you understand something inside of the heart and mind of Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. And I want to give you, as a Christian and as a Marine, just some of the implications of what is going on here. And I want to say at the outset of this, I'm quite passionate about the coming of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, about his first coming and about his future and second coming. And, whenever we see things begin to shape up biblically and prophetically, as we may be right now, it is our job, it is our duty, it is our calling as Christians to search the scriptures to see if these things are true. That's what a Berean does. So I don't want to shy away from that. And at the same time, I want to be very sober-minded about what's going on and not be led into anything that's really not there, and not call something that's there when it's not. So I want to go at that very carefully. But so with all of the uncertainty and firing back and forth, what is this all truly about? Now, if you get on Google and ask, why is this war in Israel going on, you're most likely going to get the wrong answer. And it's because they have no freaking clue. The people, the experts out there today absolutely have no clue why this war is going on. And they're going to tell you that this issue is a 60, 70, 80-year-old issue, and it's not. There couldn't be anything further from the truth. This is an issue that goes back almost 5,000 years. I'm going to show you where. So Also, who is this message for? This message is for you. You live on planet Earth. This is our reality today. Things are rapidly escalating. I believe the world changed on October 7th of this year when Hamas made its incursion into Israel and did what they did. I believe the Middle East is going to be a different place moving forward. I believe it's going to have implications for us here at home. I believe it's going to have implications for Christians that choose to stand with Israel. And I believe it's going to have deep implications for anyone in the United States military service. So if you fall into one of those categories, you might want to pay attention. So ultimately, Israel's existence goes back to Genesis chapter 13. Okay, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I'm going to spend a little bit because you need to know it. Genesis 13, God has a conversation with Abram, who later became Abraham. Okay, he is the father of the Jews. He is also the father of the Arab peoples, which we'll get into briefly. So God takes Abram into this land known today as Israel. And he tells him in the latter part of Genesis 13, he says, the Lord said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, lift your eyes now and look from the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, and westward. For all the land which you see, I give to you and your descendants forever. And I will make your descendants as the dust of the earth, so that if a man could number the dust of the earth, then your descendants also could be numbered. Okay, to break that down for you, God, the sovereign Lord and Creator, tells Abram, I want you to look north, south, east, and west, and everything that you see belongs to you. It belongs to the people coming after you, and it belongs to you forever. When God makes a promise, he keeps it. God reiterates this promise in chapter 15, if you skip over one page. And what he does is God causes Abram to fall into this sleep, and God makes a covenant with Abraham that Abraham has nothing to do with, in the sense that he doesn't have to do anything for God to keep this promise. Abraham is under zero obligation. That's why God causes him to fall asleep. And then God ends up going through with this great animal sacrifice before the two of them. And God makes another promise to Abraham. And the essence of the promise is in Genesis 15, starting in verse 18. And it says, to your descendants, I have given this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates. If you have any geographic sense, let's recall that really quick. He says the river of Egypt, which is the Nile River. So look at Israel, and I want you to mentally or with a map, go south, look at the Nile River. Now, I want you to go north, and I want you to go east and find the river Euphrates. A familiar river to me, as I have crossed it when I was in Iraq. And that geographic mass looks nothing like the nation of Israel today. The nation of Israel today is a couple hundred miles long and maybe 100, 150 miles wide at its widest point. So based upon the promise of God, the nation of Israel, the land of Israel, is much greater in mass than they currently occupy. So Abraham ends up having a son, names him Isaac. He has another son named Ishmael. He had Ishmael through a woman named Hagar, who was not his wife. So essentially, Abraham had a son with his wife named Isaac. He had another son with a maidservant named Ishmael. Ishmael was an illegitimate son. He was not the son of the promise. Ishmael was not the son that this promise to Abraham and his descendants would travel down through. This promise made to Abraham by God on at least 2 separate occasions that I've cited here is ultimately to go through his son Isaac. Okay? Now Ishmael gets pretty pissed off about it. And Ishmael is at odds with his brother Isaac. As this gets further into the story, Isaac has a son, actually 2 sons. He's got Jacob and he's got Esau, okay? And Jacob and Esau were these 2 brothers, and it ends up that, and I won't get into the long story of it, but Jacob, being the second son, so he shouldn't have the birthright, he convinces Esau to sell him his birthright one day for a bowl of soup. And Esau was foolish, and he traded away his first place birthright to his second-born brother. And it was a decision that would forever haunt him. So Jacob, being a cunning and deceitful man, he tricks Esau, number one, or convinces Esau into selling this. But secondly, he tricks his father on his father's deathbed. So when Isaac was dying, he tricked Isaac into giving him the firstborn son blessing by disguising himself as his older brother. So not only does he get Esau to sell his birthright, but he tricks his dad to give him the blessing of the firstborn son. And the promise to Abraham ends up going down into his grandson now, Jacob. And Jacob, his name later became Israel. Okay, now as shiesty as Jacob or Israel was, he was the son of the promise. And God's promise stands firm to Jacob and to Jacob's descendants. So when you hear that the Israelis or the Israelites worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you are talking about Abraham, the granddad, Isaac, the son, and Jacob, the grandson. So that's how it works. Eventually, God makes his promise more and more and more specific as time goes on. And so this whole thing is called the Abrahamic covenant, the covenant between God and Abraham. And this covenant was about basically, you're going to have a lot of people after you, you're going to have a lot of land, and I'm going to be your God. Okay, those are the 3 main things: a people, a place, and a God. And it's very possessive of God, and I mean that in a good way. Now, this promise ends up going further down, and I'm going to get to why this is all important for what's going on today between Israel and Hamas at all in the region. So you go on, and eventually the Israelites, they want a king to be like everybody else. And they hire this super awesome dude named Saul that was a worthless sack of a king. God ends up anointing and appointing David as king. And God makes a promise to David. Remember David and Goliath, right? David slaying all the Philistines. If you happen to know where the Philistines come from, a place called Philistia, otherwise known as essentially the Gaza Strip. Little, prophetic insight into the future. They're dealing with the scourge of the earth known as the Philistines. So when you get to King David, God makes a promise to him in 2 Samuel chapter 7. And it's a little bit similar, but it's more specific than the promise to Abraham. Okay, so 2 Samuel 7, and this is so fundamental and so profound and so critical to understanding everything going on. Let me just read it for you. God tells David this. So remember the Abrahamic covenant. It's, you're going to have me as your God, you're going to be my people, and you're going to have this land. Okay? Now, the Davidic covenant, the covenant between God and David, is this. He says, when your days are fulfilled and you rest with your fathers. So when you die, David, I will set up your seed after you, who will come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be his father, and he shall be my son. I'm going to skip down a little bit. And your house and your kingdom shall be established forever before you. Your throne shall be established forever. So in this covenant between God and David, it is, I'm going to give you a house. So a household. It's not a locational, or I should say a brick and mortar house. It's a household. It's a family. I'm going to give you a family forever. I'm going to give you a throne forever and a kingdom forever. And the throne and the family and the kingdom are going to reside in the place prescribed to Abraham. So in the place with the people, and God is their God. He says, your throne shall be established forever. Now, what part of forever do people not understand? Whether it's to David or whether it's to Abraham. Forever means forever. Everybody would do great to get that through their skull. So, as you go on through the Bible, you go through all these kings, and every single king after David was a son of David, and everybody had this messianic expectation. This, are they the one that's going to be the king forever and ever and sit upon the throne of David forever and ever? And they weren't, right? Solomon ends up building a temple for the king to sit in, or I'm sorry, a temple for God to reside in, near where the throne of David and every descendant of David would sit upon. And the temple sat atop Mount Zion, because God told Solomon, he said, I want you to build me a house where I can reside. And I want it to be right here in this particular place. I want it to be Mount Zion, because I am zealous, I am passionate, I am thrilled about, I am ever thinking about this holy hill. And so Solomon obeys God, and he builds this temple. This temple is ultimately destroyed someday, and the people of Israel go in and out of the land a few times. Most notably, 586 BC, after a period of massive national disobedience, God sends the Assyrians in to conquer the Israelite kingdom. And they rip them out of their houses, and they hijack them and take them back to Babylon. Okay? And they're in Babylon, and you've got Daniel in the lion's den and all those things going on, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's all in Babylon, ancient Iraq, right? Well, they end up going back to the land, and under Nehemiah, they rebuild the temple, okay? And they put the temple in the same place that Solomon had it. But the glory of God never filled the temple again as it did in the days of Solomon and thereafter. But yet it stood, and the people would sacrifice in the temple. Okay, there would be the priesthood of Aaron. So Moses' brother Aaron, he was a Levite, and everyone after him Levites, and they were the ones qualified for the priesthood. And those priests from Aaron's line, they would go in and make sacrifice. And you had many good priests, you had some bad priests, and they were the ones that made intercession for the people of Israel to God. Okay, so it was always important for the Israelites to have a temple, to have a king, and to have a priest, to be able to sacrifice, to be able to have communion, fellowship with God, for someone to know God face to face. Well, all that gets cut off eventually, and then you eventually have the Roman occupation, and you have the temple of Herod that still stood there at the time Jesus Christ was born. And if you read your genealogies in the Bible, particularly in Matthew, particularly in the Gospel of Luke, you'll see that Jesus is a son of David, so he's qualified for the kingship, and he's a son of Abraham. Of course, he's a son of Abraham because he's a son of David. Jesus is genetically qualified to sit upon the throne of David because of who his mother is. His father also being a son of David, however, of a different lineage of David. I don't want to get far into that, but Jesus was genetically qualified to be this king of Israel. And he meets all of the qualifications of the covenant with David because he is a son of man, but he's also the son of God. And he will sit upon the throne forever, upon Mount Zion's throne, upon the throne inside of the temple. And as God told Abraham, you're going to be my people and I'm going to be your God. Jesus, being a Jew, those are his people, okay? And he is their God, although they have rejected him at his first coming and they have yet to accept him nationally, which they will do one day. Now, so this is ultimately why Israel has a right to occupy and live in and own the land of Israel today. That's why they also have a rightful possession of every piece of land between the Nile River and the Euphrates. Everybody in the mainstream media is obviously going to disagree with that and call me a racist Zionist for saying it. But I am a Zionist and I fully advocate for Israel possessing all the land that God gave them and being obedient to the commands of God, however controversial that may be. So that's Israel's tie to the land. And, 1948 happened and the Jews on the tail end of the Holocaust, they ended up repossessing their land. They actually never dispossessed the land because since the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD, there have been Israelites, Jews, living in the land of Israel the entire time up until 1948. There just wasn't very many of them. So I'm not trying to make my purpose is not to make a long-standing argument of continual residence in the nation of Israel, but that argument is there. Okay, that's not my purpose here today. My purpose is more is showing why they really have a tie to the land, and it's because God said so. Okay, and to me, that's ultimately what matters. So this whole thing that we need to understand is this is about the King Jesus Christ, and his coming kingdom. Okay, now at the end of days, there are going to be some things happening where Satan ultimately attempts to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, okay? And it goes like this. If God's plan is, I'm going to be your God, you're going to be my people, I'm going to give you this land, you're going to have a kingdom, you're going to have a king, and it's forever and ever and ever, then Satan's plan is going to go against every single point of that. And that is what you see today. You see a call to dislodge every Jew from the land. Okay, so kick them out. So that strikes the Abrahamic covenant. You see an attack to annihilate every Jew. So when you hear the Palestinians and the Palestinian supporters, like on College Campi here in the U.S., and they say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Here's what they mean by that. They mean genocide, okay? There's like 52 Arabic countries in the Middle East. There's one Jewish state. And so if you say from the river, which is the Jordan River, to the sea, the Mediterranean, Palestine will be free. Everything between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Ocean is Israel. And what they're saying is the Jews have zero right to be there. Well, where would you like them to go? That would be the question. You don't want them to go anywhere. You want to drive them into the sea and you want to annihilate every single last one of them. So that is a call for genocide, and it's straight from the brain of Satan. Obviously, Satan has attacked the kingship and the throne by having the king crucified, right? Even though it was Jesus who willfully laid his life down. But, is it interesting, and I think it definitely is, that this whole thing that Hamas launched, this was not just a launch of an incursion from the Gaza Strip into the nation of Israel. This entire operation was called the Al-Aqsa Flood. The Al-Aqsa Flood is referencing the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is on top of the Temple Mount that God told Abraham about, that God told David about, that God had Solomon build a temple upon, and it's the Temple Mount that the Lord will eventually return to. And there's currently a mosque on top of it, which is supposedly the third holiest site to Islam. So everything Hamas did was about that Temple Mount. And if you can't see the demonic inspiration of the entire operation for, the unspeakable brutality of what they did, but just also the focus of the attack being the Temple Mount, then I don't know what world you're living in. Also, this whole thing also coincides with the fact that Saudi Arabia and Israel were just about to sign the Abraham Accords, normalizing relations between the Saudis and the Jews. And how interesting is it that they're called the Abraham Accords? Like, here we are in 2023, and we're signing peace deals between the Jews and the Arabs, between the sons of Jacob and the sons of Esau, the sons of Isaac and the sons of Ishmael, and it's about their dad, Abraham. That's interesting, okay? Things are looking biblical, in my opinion. So, something else you need to understand, and this will help you understand possibly where this whole thing is headed. But you need to understand the mind of Prime Minister Netanyahu. I think the biggest insight into that man was two things, really. Number one, Benjamin Netanyahu is a warrior. He has been wounded in combat multiple times, almost given his life for his country and his brethren on several occasions. Secondly, I believe that his greatest hero in his life was his brother Jonathan. Now, Jonathan was, from everything that I have read and watched about him, Jonathan Netanyahu was like the ultimate warrior in the nation of Israel. And there was an occasion back in the 70s, I want to say around 1975 or 1977, where there was a flight out of France to Israel full of Jews. It may have been El Al Airlines. And on this flight of many Jewish people back to the land of Israel, it was hijacked by a team of Palestinian hijackers. I mean, basically like the fathers of Hamas, right? And they took this plane into an airport in Entebbe, which I believe Entebbe is in Nigeria. And they had 70, 80, 90 Jews held hostage at this Nigerian airport for a few days. It was nothing but brutality and violence. Anyways, Jonathan Netanyahu was a commander in the Israeli Defense Forces, more on the special forces side of things, and he ends up leading a raid where they camouflaged their vehicles in Israel to look like these Nigerian vehicles that would be at the airport. They loaded them up on this plane. They flew the plane into the airport, into Africa, and landed, and then drove these camouflage cars, or these faked out looking cars, up to the hijacked airliner, the special forces, including Jonathan Netanyahu, boarded the plane, killed the hijackers, freed the hostages, got every single person to safety, got them all back to Israel. But then on Jonathan Netanyahu's way out of the plane and back onto his own plane, he was shot and killed. He was the only casualty of the entire raid. You can watch this. There's several versions of the raid on Entebbe, spelled Entebbe. And every one of the movies that I've seen a few, are well done. And there's a recent one that's just really well done. So I highly encourage you to watch that. But that event where Jonathan Netanyahu was killed, it was a tragedy for the nation of Israel. And it was obviously a great tragedy in the life of Benjamin Netanyahu, because he idolized his brother. And I believe that what's going on inside of Benjamin Netanyahu right now is, and his resolve to fight for his people and for his country, I believe part of that comes for his love, devotion, and remembrance of his brother. The other thing is this. I'm going to show you this quick clip of Benjamin Netanyahu speaking several days ago about what they must do. Please pay attention to this. You're going to have to listen for the female voice translating his speech, and it's highly important.
Our war against Hamas is a test for all of humanity. It is a struggle between the axis of evil of Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas, and the axis of freedom and progress. We are the people of the light. They are the people of darkness, and light shall triumph over darkness. Citizens of Israel, October 7th was a very dark and black day in our history. We will fully investigate what had happened at our southern border, the border with Gaza. Everybody will have to provide answers, myself included, but all that will happen only after the war. As a prime minister, I'm responsible for guaranteeing the future of this country, and now my role is to lead all Israelis, the state of Israel and the people of Israel, to an overpowering victory. It is now a time to come together for one purpose, to storm ahead to achieve victory. With joint forces and a profound belief in our justness, a profound belief in the eternity of the Jewish people, we shall realize the prophecy of Isaiah. There will no longer be stealing at your borders, and your gates will be of glory. Together we will fight. Together we will win.
What you heard in that clip was Benjamin Netanyahu, and I believe that you heard the resolve in his voice for what they must do. But the other thing is, he cited the prophecies of Isaiah, and he is specifically citing Isaiah 60, verse 18, as what they will bring about. This is key, this is critical, this is fundamental to understanding what's inside of his brain right now as they're about to embark on something amazing. Let me read for you this verse. Violence shall no longer be heard in your land, neither wasting nor destruction within your borders, but you shall call your walls salvation and your gates praise. This entire passage here in Isaiah 60 is really speaking to the coming kingdom where the people of Israel serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the land of Israel upon the Temple Mount, and that there is peace and righteousness and a dawning of the new age and era of the kingdom with the king. And there is no longer violence. There is no longer theft. There is no longer people that are waking up to find that their entire family has been slaughtered by Hamas. Now, this coming time is only going to come about later on. But I believe that Benjamin Netanyahu is going to make an attempt to bring this about. And I think because he doesn't, to my knowledge, have a relationship with Christ and understand that Jesus is the King of Israel, he has yet to truly understand what he speaks of. But this is the attempt that I believe he's about to make. And I believe it based upon his words. You can call me crazy. You can call me, fundamental or paranoid or crazed. But I just take people at their word. That's what I do. And you're looking at a man in Benjamin Netanyahu and a people in the nation of Israel that are up against the wall. They have just watched 1,400 of their brethren be slaughtered and butchered and raped and ravaged and pillaged and dismembered. And we're talking men, women, little kids, little babies, unborn babies, elderly people. We have seen atrocities in the last 2 weeks that we haven't seen since Nazi Germany. And maybe the Nazis would be astonished at what they saw Hamas did. I don't know. But when people are going through that type of trauma and they understand that if they do nothing, that it will continue to happen, I believe that you have to take them very seriously when they tell you how far they're about to go. And what Netanyahu and the nation of Israel has said is that if anybody else gets involved, as in Hezbollah up in the north in Lebanon, that they're going to strike Damascus and level it. There is a passage about Damascus being leveled in one day in Isaiah chapter 17. I encourage you to read it. The fact that Israel mentioned leveling Damascus, I think it's quite serious. It's quite serious in the aggressive nature of their words, but it's quite serious in the prophetic nature of what they're also saying, because the Bible writes about it. Just as we also take our enemies seriously and we take our enemies at their word. Okay, if someone is telling you, I'm going to kill you and here's how I'm going to do it, you'd be an absolute freaking fool not to take them at their word and do whatever it could to mitigate the things that they were saying. Now, the nation of Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, they have all said that their goal, their aim, everything that they seek is to wipe the Jews off the face of the earth. So when Iran makes that statement and is on a warpath to get a nuclear weapon, what do you think they're going to use it for? For genocide. Okay, so that's what Israel's playing with right here. And, recalling your memory back to the speech that you just watched Netanyahu make, let me ask you this question. Do you think that he's just talking about the Gaza Strip? Because I personally don't. I personally believe, and if you just take this passage of Isaiah 60, verse 18, that Netanyahu's talking about, how are they going to live securely and safely and not have walls or have walls of glory and just this lovely kingdom age when all they've done is pacify the Gaza Strip and eradicate Hamas? You can't. You got to freaking kill them all. Okay, I mean, this involves Iran. This involves Hezbollah. This involves Syria. This involves the Houthis down in Yemen. This involves Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq. This involves Bashar al-Assad in Syria. This involves anyone else shaking a sword at Israel. Is it going to go that far? I don't know. Nobody does. Anyone that says they know what's going to happen is a liar or insane. I'm just saying these things could happen because this is the verbiage that Netanyahu's making. You also look at the verbiage of the enemies and what they say that they're going to do. And everybody needs to be taken at their word in a time like this. So, if you happen to be in the United States military service and you're on your way to this, number one, you have my absolute full salute. You have my prayers, because what you're embarking upon is a very dangerous mission. The enemies of Israel are locked and loaded. They're heavily armed. They mean business. And it is not going to be like the last 20 years of messing with the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and ISIS. These are much more serious, trained, and armed enemies. And I believe that there's a high potential for massive escalation given the other geopolitics going on at the time. So, is everything going to back down and just get put back in a box? I don't know. It could. It always could, right? But so far, we don't see anyone trying to dial things down. So I hope that what I've given you is an understanding of why these things are happening. The mind of Netanyahu that I believe that I have some type of grasp upon, although I've never met the man. But, and understanding what they may do going forward. So I hope this video is helpful to you. If it is, please send it to somebody else that needs to hear it. Thank you.